With the newest release of the Housemiths of Hashut, I have managed to get a box for myself. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I didn't make a homebrew army. So let's talk about Vyx Zhuv. The Great Forge was just like any other Hashut forge actually, but during the Age of Chaos, the volcano nearby erupted, spilling forth demons, corrupting the magic of the area and turning almost all the Housemiths into stone. But in recent years, the survivors returned, only to see the statues of their once comrades moving, and the forge fires burning, but with an ethereal blue flame. What happened here? I know, but if I manage to get Goobus Doobus to speak to me, I might be able to show it. Anywho, let's begin what you've been waiting for. Well, before we start painting, use Steel Forged Silver for the main gun, Matte Black for the Hobgrot, and Standard Grey for all the chorfs. Just as a side note, all the paints I used in this video are usable for all the infantry and war machines for the army. So, with that information, gather up these paints and get ready. Begin this step with a heavy dry brushing of ash grey over both of the chorfs, alongside any others who are victims of petrification. Then use more dry brushing, this time using Gargoyle Grey, while doing the same thing as last one. Lighten up the use of the dry brushing for this paint in particular though. Move on to the Hobgrot next. I started with the skin, going more towards the skin tone of the classic hobgoblins, simply by using wild flesh all over the skin. Follow it up with the cloth, by using Basilisk Red all over. If you are doing any non-petrified chorfs, then use this paint for their cloth as well. There still is some leather points, so some simple and careful coverage of leather brown over those points should definitely do the trick. I moved over to the artillery battery just so it's easier to see, but start the metallics with some red copper. Use this paint over all of the sections of trim found on the tools, shields, weapons, armors and war machines. And finish this step with some gunmetal, going over all the remaining bits of metal, the handles and any other non-petrified metal pieces. After all of that, wash out your water pot and get ready to shade. For the shading, there will be a lot of times where the previous shades need to still be somewhat wet, while some of the others. But for now, gather up the paints and get ready to shade. Start the step with some Nuln Oil, going over all the steel and stone. Do try to avoid any pooling as much as you can. Follow it up with Agrax Earthshade. While the Nuln is still wet, apply the paint in stipples over the stone, but fully over the copper, cloth and leather. Continue on with Poxwalker. All you need to do with this shade is simply go over all the Hobgrot skin, carefully as you go past some of the points of the previous shaded areas. Then finally, add some extra detailing, use Fragrant Orange over some of the portions of the metal found on the war machines and tools, going anywhere you would like the rust to show up on. After all those paints have dried, you can get ready to layer the models. Layering for this video is somehow shorter than normal, but there is a bit extra work to do later on. For now, just grab all the paints and get ready to layer. Complete the stony detail with the aptly named Ancient Stone. Use this as a dry brush slightly over the highest areas on the statue, but be careful when going around the tools. After that, use some goblinoid green over all of the hobgot skin, simply and carefully only going over the highest areas found for the skin. But also don't forget to use some previous ancient stone on the teeth and nails. Continue on with the River and Fury. Simply use this paint on all of the red details on the model, alongside the eyes on the hobgrot. Next, use some Paratrooper Tan. Carefully go over all of the leather details found throughout the model. Once all of that has been dried, you can get to work on the metallics. Metallics begin with a heavy dry brushing of plate mail metal, going over all of the silver colours, but when you get to the tools and armour, just use a smaller layering brush and go over those areas. Give all the copper trim found on all the models a layering of evil chrome. Let it all dry while washing out the water pot, and when you're ready, we can start the new step. Yes, you heard me. A new step. This is the extra step, where all the glow, energy and weathering will live from now on. After having a very nice look at everything here, gather up the paints, and we can continue. We begin the new step with Troll Slayer Orange. Use this paint, water it down a lot, then apply over parts of the silver details, except for any metal found on the armour or trinkets of the hobgrots. I mean, definitely the handle though, because that's, dwarven tech. Now to weather the copper. You can do this very easily with Nihilakh Oxide. Simply just use this paint over all the copper on any model and tool that isn't hobgot armour. Apologies about the blur, but we can now start on the glowing effect. Use this paint to show off the energy glowing around all those sources. For the green, it will be the gems and the Chorf eyes. Now for a focused glow over the source. Simply use Warpstone Glow on the full source of the energy source. But do it carefully as you go over the eyes of the Chorf. For the final highest glow, use Moot Green, going over all the points that would be hitting the most from. For this example, I use it to edge layer the gems and dot the eyes. Now for the other, more ethereal glow. Begin with Athematic Blue, going over all the area where this glow may hit the surrounding area. For the actual areas hitting the glow, use Wolf Grey. Try to get it very watered down if you can, but also be very careful while going around the areas that, are metal. Then, the final step of this part is Augur Blue. Use this on all the eyes, alongside the deepest part of the source of the flames. Don't worry if this looks weird, the Uncali Valley is what helps the etheric nature exist. We are finally onto the last step of the video, the base. I have gone for a simple desert base for this one, so just simply gather up all the supplies for painting this model, and let us finish this. Beginning the desert base is quite easy. Start with Armageddon dust over the entire base. For some extra detail of sand getting everywhere, add some of it onto the war machine itself. Once that paint has dried, use some Seraphim Sepia over the entire base, alongside any areas where you added the sand as well. Let that dry once more, then glue on the crew. Once all of that is done, dry brush the more exposed parts of the sand with the aptly named pale sand. The motions on how to paint it doesn't really matter too much. The final paint of the model will in fact be matte black. This is the only one use, and that is just to be applied onto the rim of the base. I point a few because I can, but use Mordian corpse grass over the base in areas that you want, or just areas that you want to cover up any mistakes on. After all of these steps have been done, your model should start looking a bit like this. And there you have it. This took me a whole lot longer to do when it came to recording the actual video. I wasn't expecting the texture paint to dry for that long, but with the days getting shorter and colder, it would be best to stay warm whatever way possible. But for now, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.